Yo, what's up, people? I'm back again. As you can see from the title, we are reading Dick Gregory. We are reading Nigger by Dick Gregory. We're on chapter 3. This is the book. If you have Kindle, Audible, that's the price. I got it off um, Google Books for like $12. Cause like I guess Kindle wants you to have a subscription or whatever, but I'm gonna put on some Yu-Gi-Oh gameplay and watch it while I read. You're not gonna be able to hear it, so it won't mess up the audio. As a matter of fact, I want to check to see if you can hear this. Make sure you can't. Make sure it's not. Hold on. Make sure it's not. Okay, cool. Y'all can't hear it, but you can hear me. Perfect. So you could listen and watch something actively happening. You feel me? Chapter 3. My best friend in those days, well, was Boo. His real name is Charles Simmons, and he's a teacher in St. Louis now. Boo, he was 50 years old when he was when he was 9. He was born old. He used to sit on the curb and pull all the insides out of a loaf of bread and roll it up into little white balls and line the balls up in a neat row on the sidewalk. Then he'd go down the line and eat the little white bread balls one by one. We'd sit and talk while Boo ate his bread balls, figuring out all the tough things we were going to do. All the tough things we were going to do. Hey, Richard, what? Let's go down to the zoo and let all the tigers loose. Nah, that's no fun, Boo. Let's get that streetcar conductor. We'll set him on fire and we'll drop him into Mr. Ben's icebox. Nah, let's go beat up Calvin. Calvin was Boo's little brother. Boo was really tough. All the gangs were always trying to get him to join. He was such a good fighter. And if he couldn't whip a guy himself, he had a lot of older brothers who could. Mess with Boo? That was like declaring a war. Boo never started fights himself. He was too lazy. But he kept me from being beat up a lot of times. I was the neighborhood sissy. Ran errands for everybody, even Calvin. We had a lot of fun. Boo and I, rolling down the street inside of brick truck tires. Instead of big truck tires, playing stickball with a broom handle and soda bottle caps. Goes even further if you pack the inside of the cap with dirt. But you better not let the other team catch you doing that. Best game we had was snatch and run. You kind of walk slow down the street whistling and looking around with your hands in your pockets, pretending you're just taking the air. Then you pass a fence that has a sign of beware of dog. You slither past it, snatch the gate open, and run. I think that's the reason I got to be so fast later on. You can break world records if you got a bad dog chasing you. Once I was bitten by a Great Dane when he snatched the gate in Cote Brilliant Street. The owner saw us. So when I went down to the clinic, I couldn't tell them I knew which dog bit me. They would have taken me back there to pick up that dog for for a rabies test, and the owner would have told Mama what I had done. So I had to take the 14 rabies shots. Boo and I never pulled anything big for kicks. We cheered at fights, and we egged guys on to do things. But we were the first to run away when the cops came. There were Negro cops in the neighborhood, and they were tough. They were even tougher on us kids than the white cops because they knew us better, and how we acted reflected on them. There was Big Black and Middlebrooks and Clarence Lee and Grimes, the toughest of them all. That Grimes could put 7 cats from the corner in the hospital with 2 blows. Once he caught a kid drinking wine in the schoolyard and he smashed the bottle while the kid was drinking out of it with a baseball bat. Toughest thing Boo and I ever did was bomb the streetcar. We'd fill up paper shopping bags with the powdery dark dust that lays over St. Louis when it gets hot and dry in the summer. Then we stand at the corner with our shopping bags, and when the streetcar came, we'd swing the bags around and around like softball pitchers winding up, and then, just when the streetcar stopped, we'd let our paper bags go. Blam! By the time the dust cleared, Boo and I would be under the porch, watching the people rub their eyes and try to clean off their clothes, listening to them cough and curse. Boo and I would be laughing our heads off. Most of the time, though, Boo and I just hustled. Saturday was our big day. We get up in the early, before daylight, and run out to the white neighborhoods, not the rich neighborhoods where my mama worked, but the working people's neighborhoods. Depending on the time of the year, we scrub steps, shovel snow, wash automobiles, and wash windows. A lot of times I went out with Presley, my older brother, or alone, because Boo's father was a chauffeur and he didn't have to hustle so much. It was the windows I didn't like. Standing out there on the second story ledge, afraid to stay out there, afraid to come in and go out on the next window. Sometimes I prayed out there. A couple of times I pissed in my pants. After working the white neighborhood, we'd come back to the Negro neighborhood and haul groceries from about 2 o'clock to about 4 o'clock. After that, we'd get our shoe shine boxes, and while we were walking around looking for customers, we sell wood and coal. We steal it from anywhere. We'd pull down a fence for wood. That night, we worked the White Tavern shining shoes and then sell the Sunday papers until about 3 o'clock in the morning. Come home, get up at 6 o'clock to deliver more papers until about 9:30. My biggest problem was figuring out what to charge people. I never wanted anyone to hate me over a dollar. I'd say, pay me what you think it's worth. Hardly ever did they pay me what I thought it was worth, and I walk away disgusted. But then I figured at least I could always go back there. Those people didn't dislike me for overcharging them, but I got taken a lot that way. After we finish selling papers, we clean up and go to church. I like church, sitting there and listening to the sweet music and the preacher shouting and everyone dressed so fine and clean. The Negro church has always meant a lot to the Negro. It was his club, his social life, a place where he could figure out the man downtown. Forget about the man downtown. For me, then, it was a place to get all wrapped up in a God who was stronger than any teacher or social worker, a man who owned a second story window. We went to the movies a lot, too. Loved the movies. Alan Ladd and Humphrey Bogart. So cool. We used to walk like they did and talk out of the sides of our mouths like they did and smoke like they did, sucking that last puff right down to our toes. Went to the cereals, Spy Smasher, 15 weeks to find out the good guy won. Never missed a Tarzan movie. Used to sit there and laugh at those dumb Hollywood Africans grunting and jumping around and trying to fight the white man, spears against high powered rifles. Once we had a riot in the movies when the Tarzan jumped down from a tree and grabbed about 100 Africans. We didn't mind when Tarzan beat up 5 or 10, but this was just too many, a whole tribe. And we took that movie house apart, ran up on the stage and kicked the screen and fought the guys who still dug Tarzan. We used to root for Frankenstein, sat there and yelled, "Get him, Frankie, baby." We used to root for the Indians against the cavalry because we didn't think it was fair in the history books that when the cavalry won, it was a great victory. When the Indians won, it was a massacre. We always cheered for the American soldiers and booed the Japanese and the Germans. We never noticed that there weren't any Negro soldiers on the screen, even though we saw them on the street. My favorite movie then was King's Row. I was about 10. Figured out all by myself that the old doctor cut the railroad man's legs off because the young guy didn't love his daughter and she went crazy. I was pretty proud of myself for figuring that all out. I guess I should have sat through it enough times. We had joys back there in St. Louis, joys that made us want to live just as surely as the pains taught us how to live. There was Camp Rivercliff in the Missouri Hills, where we sat around the campfire at night and sang songs and visited caves where Jesse James had stashed some bank money. and learned about brushing teeth and using soap and water. I went there 2 summers, 2 weeks each time. Reverend James Cook ran it. He'd pick us off the streets and pack us in the trucks and take us into the clear air. The counselors were Negroes who had finished high school and gone to college. I really liked them. If you messed up, they beat you but good. But I guess the best thing we never did was go to see the Mooney Opera. Boo and I would walk and run half the day to get there, to sit up in the free seats for kids. Carousel and Showboat and Roberta. Those were the kind of shows we'd see, the kind of music that really made you feel good. We sit up there and watch the conductors, so sophisticated in their tuxedos. We were so far away from the singers and dancers that we couldn't tell if they were white or colored. During the intermission, we could walk down and watch the rich people smoke and talk and laugh. That was part of the show, too. Sometimes in the summer, we'd go almost every night. It was almost like church. And then we could go home and turn on the radio and hum along with the same kind of music we had heard at the Mooney and close our eyes and the kitchen would disappear and we could see the whole show all over again. I got picked on a lot around the neighborhood, skinniest kid on the block, the poorest, the one without a daddy. I guess that's when I first began to learn about humor, the power of a joke. Hey, Gregory, yeah, get your ass over here. I want to look at that shirt you're wearing. Well, Herma, I got to. What you think of that shirt he's wearing, York? That's no shirt, Herman. That's a tent for a picnic. That's your daddy's shirt, Gregory. Well, he ain't got no daddy, Herman. That's a three-man shirt. A three-man shirt. Him and Garland and Presley supposed to wear that shirt together. At first, if Boo wasn't around to help me, I'd go, I'd get mad and run home and cry when the kids started. And then, I don't know just when, I started to figure it out. They were going to laugh anyway. But if I made the jokes, they'd laugh with me instead of at me. I'd get the kids off my back on my side. So I'd come off that porch talking about myself. Hey, Gregory, get your ass over here. Want you to tell me and Herman how many kids sleep in your bed. Goo gobs of kids in my bed, man. When I get up to pee in the middle of the night, gotta leave a bookmark so I don't lose my place. Before they could get going, I knock it out first, fast. Knock out those jokes so they wouldn't have time to set and climb all over me. Other night I crawled through one of them rat holes in the kitchen. Would you believe would you believe it them rats were sleeping six to a bed just like us? And they started to come over and listen to me. They'd see me coming and they'd see me coming and crowd around me on the corner. We don't worry about knocking the snow off our shoes before we go into my house. So cold in there, no snow's going to melt on the floor anyways. Everything began to change then. Once you get a man to laugh with you, it's hard for him to laugh at you. The kids began to expect to hear funny things from me, and after a while, I could say anything I wanted. I got a reputation as a funny man, and then I started to turn the jokes on them. Hey, Gregory, where's your daddy these days? Sure glad that motherfucker's out the house. Got a little peace and quiet. Not like your house, York. What you say? Yeah, man. What a free show I had last night. Better than the Mooney. Laying in bed with the window open, listening to your daddy whoop your mama. That was your daddy, York, wasn't it? And then I turned real quick to another kid. Hey, Herman, did the police wagon ever get by your house last night? They stopped by my house and asked where you lived. I got to be good. The champ of the block, the champ of the neighborhood as I got older. I'd stand on the corner, hands in my pockets, feet on the sewer lid, back to the street, Boo right next to me. After a while, they'd come from all around to try to score on the champ. Yo, you, Richard Gregory? Yeah, I'm George. You're midnight. Blackest cat I ever saw. Bet your mama fed you buttermilk just so you wouldn't pee ink. Sometimes I couldn't even use the humor on myself. Like when I was delivering papers and I broke my arm and I couldn't cry from laughing over the rundown heels on my shoes that made me slip when I turned the corner. A worn heel could break an arm, but I never heard of an arm could break a heel. But honestly, I'd use family jokes about how my mother was such a bad cook, maybe the worst cook in the world. Who ever heard of burning Kool-Aid? But that wasn't really very funny. There never was any meal time in our house. If you were there, you ate. Grab a hot dog, a piece of bologna, bread, and run out again. Sometimes when the weather was hot, we were afraid to open the wooden ice box. The sour smell of yesterday's beans could knock you out. And it bugged me when the other kids in the neighborhood were called in to eat dinner. We'd be playing, and all of a sudden they all have to leave to eat. I just wait on their back porches until they were through eating and ready to come out to play again. It's a funny feeling to be by yourself on a back porch and hear people eating, people talking. There's no talk. There's no talk in the world like the warm, happy talk of a family at the dinner table. I'd peep through the window and see my friend Robert in there, close by his daddy. Then his daddy would get up and stick a toothpick in his mouth, pick up the paper, light a cigar, and walk around like he owned the world. Once he came to the back porch, smiling to himself, looking at his cigar. Then he glanced down, and there I was. Who you, boy? I'm Miss Gregory's boy, Richard. What you sitting out here for? I'm waiting on Robert to get through eating. Why didn't you come in and get something to eat? I'm not hungry, thank you. You come on in here, boy, and get something to eat. He brought me in and sat me down at the table. He brought me in the second day, too, and the third day. And that's when I thanked God for all the manners Mama taught me. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. They looked pleased to have me there, too. The old man really dug me. Bet he wouldn't have minded it too much if I was his son, too. Damn, they all really dug me. Robert's little sister jumped up so quick to wash the dishes and bring me water that everybody teased her. How come, Marjorie, you only show off and wash dishes when Richard's here? Then, on the fifth day, I met Robert's daddy coming off the streetcar from work, and I asked him what time you all going to eat. I didn't really ask him this because I was hungry. I asked him because I had sat at his table every day, ashamed of how dirty I was. Dirty from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet. This one day I wanted to go clean. Then I ran home and took a bath. I had polished my tennis sneakers. I put them up on the roof so they wouldn't stink so bad. I washed my socks and ironed my shirt and put on a pair of sissy short pants Mama brought home from the white folks. They were the best pair I had because I never wore them. Didn't like them, but I was really glad I had them. I wanted to sit at the table as clean as they were. When I walked by the house, nobody was outside, so I knocked on the front door. Is Miss Robert in? Miss Brown? Yes, but he's eating. He's eating now? He'll be out after a while. You can wait on the back porch. Then I heard the old man say, who was that out there? That Gregory boy again. Little Richard, eh? Have him come in and get something to eat. The table didn't seem as warm and happy that night. Robert's mama was arguing with Daddy about little things. After dinner, I helped them clear the dishes. I dropped one. Yeah, just my luck. I broke it. And when I saw the way Miss Brown looked at me, like I had no right to be there, I got a little mad. She didn't know I was going to bring her a whole set of dishes tomorrow. Yeah, a whole set. Lunchtime, I'm going by the 10-cent store and steal me a whole set of dishes and bring it to her in time for dinner tomorrow. I was out on the back porch helping the old man sharpen his lawnmower when I heard it. Robert, I'm sick of that Gregory boy in here eating every night. Doesn't he even say thanks anymore? Ain't he got no mother or father? Goddamn! Now I'm crying, and now I start running, and I run, and then the alley ends, and I turn out of that one and look for another. Didn't even say thanks. Yeah, I used to say thanks, but you all made me feel so at home, like I belonged there with you. I never say thanks at home. You made me come off that back porch. You looked like you had so much fun and enjoyment with me there. He let me think I was a part of the family, almost like one of Mr. Brown's sons. Why'd she have to go say that? And he got no mother and father? Chapter 4. There were other fathers along the way, men who reached out and gave me their hands. There was Mr. Coleman, principal of the Cote Brilliant Grammar School where I was transferred when I was 13. He called me into his office once when I was in the seventh grade. I walked right up to his big oak desk and he leaned back in his swivel chair and looked me up and down. I've got a problem you might be able to help me with, Richard. It's about your job as a patrol boy. Sure, Mr. Coleman. I've had complaints about how rough you are at school crossing, Richard. You push the students, use bad language. Now, I've watched you, Richard, and I know you're one of our best patrol captains. You don't let anybody cross until all the cars have stopped. You get right out there and make those trucks stay behind the white line. I don't want to have to take your badge away. Well, Mr. Coleman, how old are you, Richard? 14. I was embarrassed at being behind. You're a leader, Richard, a smart boy, a little older than some of the other students. They'll do just what you tell them if you're kind and strong. You've got to help them out on that corner. You can't be hateful. You're just like a father with a lot of children to watch after. Now go out there and keep those little kids safe. At 3 o'clock, I ran out on my post and stood out there like a happy traffic cop, as straight as a man could stand, proud because everybody was looking at me, because kids couldn't cross the street without me. Milkmen, laundrymen, they pull up their trucks, and I'd make sure all the kids were on the sidewalk before I'd wave them through. The drivers would lean out and wave at me and call hello as they passed by. I was somebody. I changed a lot those years at Cote Brilliant. St. Louis had a segregated school system, and that school had been built for white kids. But after the war, when the neighborhood changed, it became a Negro school. It had trees and lawns and beautiful brick buildings. I had to walk through a nice neighborhood to get there from North Taylor. I stopped shining shoes that year because I wanted to go to school clean, without polish all over my hands. I started taking books home with me. I still didn't read them because it was too cold at home, but it was a good feeling to have them around. In the 3 years I went to Cote Brilliant, I only missed school when I didn't have enough warm clothes. The teachers were different too. I guess Mr. Coleman set the tone. They talked to me. They listened to me. I got a chance to see Negroes in authority who didn't seem bitter or out to get me. I got up in class and talked, even if I really didn't have anything to say. Miss Carter? Yes, Richard. If 2 and 2 is 4, then what are you really saying is that you have to subtract 2 from 4 two times to get 0. Or you could multiply 2 times 2 and then subtract it from 4, or from 2 plus 2 and still get 0. Isn't that right? Uh, I think so, Richard, but perhaps you better say that again, slowly. I never read books, so I didn't really know things the way other kids did. But all of a sudden, I wanted to know. From all those years on the street, I had a feeling that maybe there was more things than just what was brought out in class. And so I tried to punch holes in the story the other kids believed in. I don't think anybody could throw a silver dollar all the way across no river and show those kids they really weren't as smart as they thought. Did you ever see that gold in Fort Knox? How you know it's really there? I didn't know the answer either, but I got but I got to be a big man at Cote Brilliant. I got the reputation of a talker who could go on about anything at all. There was a school play about the United Nations, and I was invited to be an actor in it. I started to learn how to read newspapers, and I could talk about the editorial page. And I was the big negotiator, the guy who broke up all the fights. Teachers would send for me to break up fights. Sometimes the big guys would come after me. A guy twice my size would grab me and push me against the wall and be all ready to knock my face in. I'd roll my eyes and look down at his feet. Baby, you better kill me quick. If you don't, I'm gonna steal those cool shoes you wearing. Now, who could beat up a guy who said that? Then I went to summer high and I was nobody again. There were a lot of wealthy Negro kids at summer, kids at Sumner, doctors' sons who had their own cars. Every girl looked as clean and as smart as Helen Tucker. The athletes and the rich boys and the brains were the big wheels at Sumner High School. The only attention I got was in Pop Beckett's gym class. Pop was one of the first Negro graduates of Springfield College in Massachusetts, probably the greatest physical education school in the country. He was tough. Rich or poor, everybody got hit one time or another in his class. He slapped me a couple of times for messing up, and it feels good to have somebody care enough to beat me for a reason. It got to the point where I started looking for it. Pop would stand up on the platform in front of the gym class, his face stony, his chest bulging out of his t-shirt, and I sucked my cheeks in until my lips squeaked. What was that? Pop would roar. Me, it was me, Pop. Whop! Or I'd yell out, Pop, you stink. That you, Gregory? Yeah, Pop, it was me. Get up here. Whop! I began to I became a big man in gym class because I was the only one who would yell at Pop and take my beating. I guess he knew what I was doing, why I was doing it, because he never threw me out. When school ended in June, Boo and Presley and I got jobs with the government flood control project on the levee. We told them we were 18 years old. At $1.25 an hour, I figured I'd be able to get some nice new clothes for school next fall. That summer was like a long, bad movie. We had to load and pile sandbags up and down the banks of Mississippi, and it was so hot the soles of our boots got sticky, and our shirts were like another layer of skin. Always wet, always muddy. And if you took your clothes off, you died from sunstroke. We saw a lot of men die, work all day, all night, puffing on cigarettes to keep the mosquitoes off, sleep where you drop, eat when the Red Cross truck came along with sandwiches and coffee. One of us always kept watch behind in case another man went crazy in the sun and started splitting heads with his shovel. We were loading 100-pound sandbags one day, and I'd been urinating blood for a week when the levee started shaking and the bags began to turn dark brown from the water seeping through. A Negro Army sergeant grabbed my arm. See my truck over there, boy? When the levee busts, we ain't gonna pick up no whites here, but you hang near the truck and jump in. And suddenly somebody screaming, "It's breaking! It's breaking!" And water and bags and men were spilling and tumbling around us, and Boo and Presley and I were running through the muddy water, running until we fell down and got up again. Once we were so tired, we just fell down and stayed there. The water came seeping up through the ground, and we were running again. No place to lie down, nothing to eat. We passed three white men standing up on top of a rock eating cheese sandwiches. They wouldn't let us up with them. One of them threw half a cheese sandwich down. Boo tore it in three parts, and we were just about to bite onto it when one of the white men grabbed his stomach and pitched over. We started running again. We got separated that night, and we didn't see each other again for a couple of weeks. When the water went down and we all were sent home, we were heroes when we got home. Mama was so glad to see us because she had read about a truckload of Negroes who had been drowned. Boo and Presley and I strutted around the neighborhood, and people bought us watermelon slices just to sit on their front porches and tell them how bad it was, how many people we saved. We lied our heads off. It was beautiful. We had a lot of trouble getting our checks for that summer. An old white man with a turkey neck down at the federal building kept telling Presley and me to come back tomorrow. Finally, Mama came down with us and straightened things out, and a few weeks later, we almost got $500. For the first time, Presley and I went downtown to shop in the big department stores. We were treated like dogs. We go into a place, and the salesman would hurry away from His white customer. What do you boys want? Hat? What color? Brown? What's your head size? Don't know. You have to know. I'll try it on. Like hell you will. Wherever we went in the store, the detective would follow us. Couldn't touch, couldn't try things on. Funny though, they put our money right next to the white folks' money in the cash register. We got home and we spread out our clothes on the floor for everybody to see. There were more shirts and socks and underwear on that floor than in the whole wide world. I felt a lot better going back to high school that year, wearing new clothes, feeling clean on the outside. When I heard that the track team got to take showers every evening after practice, I asked the coach if I could join. Sumner had the best Negro track team in the state and a brilliant coach, Lamar Smith. You run before? Sure, coach. I do a lot of running. Where? Around the neighborhood. He shook his head. We've given out all the lockers and uniforms for this year. All I want to do is take a shower in the afternoon. He looked me over and kind of smiled. All right, but you'll have to bring your own sweatsuit and stay off the track and out of my and out of my boy's way. That's how I started in sports. Sumner had a fine athletic field. While the team ran inside the field, around the track, I ran outside, around the city block. Every day when school let out at 3 o'clock, I get into an old pair of sneakers and a t-shirt and gym shorts and run around the block. In the beginning, I just run for an hour, then go and take a hot shower. And then one day two girls walked by and one of them said, "What's he think he doing?" And the other one said, "Oh, he must be training for the big races." I just kept running that day, around and around the block, until every time I hit the pavement, pain shot up my leg like a needle went into my side. And I kept going around and around until I was numb and I didn't feel anything anymore. Suddenly, it was dark, and the track team had all left. I could hardly walk home, my feet hurt so much. But I couldn't wait until the next day to get out there again. Maybe I couldn't run as fast as the other guys, but I could run longer, longer than anybody in all of the city of St. Louis. And then everybody would know who I was. I kept running all that fall and all that winter, sometimes through the snow, until everybody in school knew who I was, the guy who never took a rest from 3 o'clock until 6 o'clock. I don't think I ever would have finished high school without running. It was something that kept me going from day to day, a reason to get up in the morning, to sit through classes with the Helen Tuckers and the doctor's sons who knew all the answers and read all the books at home, to look forward to going a little faster and a little longer at 3 o'clock. And I felt so good when I ran, all by myself like a room of my own. I could think anything I wanted while I ran and talk to myself. And sometimes I'd write stories on my favorite daddy and what I'd buy with $1 million. And I could figure out why people did certain things and why certain things happened. Nobody would point to me and say I was poor or crazy. They just look at me with admiration and say, he's training. I never got hungry while I was running, even though I never ate breakfast at home and I didn't always have money for lunch. I never was cold or hot or ashamed of my clothes. I was proud of my body that kept going around and around and never had to take a rest. After 6 o'clock, I go to White's Eat Shop and wash dishes in return for dinner. Sometimes I go downtown to sneak into a white hotel and put on a busboy's uniform and get a good meal in the kitchen. The man never knew the difference. All niggers look alike. And then I'd go home and go to sleep because I was tired and I needed rest. I'd be running again tomorrow. When spring came, the coach called me over one day and asked me if I'd like to run on the track. I ran against the guys on the team, and they were still faster than me, but I could keep going long after they were pooped out. Every so often, the coach would walk by and tell me I was holding my arms wrong, or that my body was the wrong angle, or my knees weren't coming up high enough. But I was on the inside now, and I was getting a little faster every day. By the time school closed in June, I was beating the boys on the track team. The coach told me to report for track first thing in September. There would be a locker for me and a uniform. The Sumner That summer was the roughest I ever spent. The Korean War was on, and good jobs were opening up in the ammunition plants. I lied 4 years, told them I was 21, and went to work for a company manufacturing 105 millimeter howitzer shells. The unfinished shells weighed 45 pounds each, and I had to pick up 243 every 20 minutes. I always had stomach trouble, never could wear a belt, and every time I bent over and picked up a shell, my insides tore a little. But with overtime, I could pull down as much as 200 some dollars a week. When the other workers found out how old I was, there was a lot of resentment. They slip up behind me with crowbars and shove the casings down the belt fastener. Then I could pick them up. I'd be so tired when I came home. It was a real effort to get out and practice my running. Then they put me on the night shift, 11 o'clock to 7 in the morning. Keep the streets a little safer at night. One less nigger running around, the foreman said. Now I did my running in the mornings after work. When the other folks were just going to their jobs, I kind of liked that. But it hurt not being able to be with Boo and my friends in the evening. And then the foreman told another boss to put me down in the furnace pit. Nigger can take the heat better, he said. Well, the system wasn't going to beat me. I stood up next to the furnace and ate their goddamn salt tablets and just refused to pass out. They weren't going to make me quit, and I wasn't going to give them cause to fire me. I'd lean into that blazing pit until my face would sting, and when the lunch whistle blew, I'd fall on the floor and vomit blood after an hour, and I'd clean it up myself. It was all worth it. I could walk home at the end of the week and put money in my mama's hand. We could go shopping with cash instead of the green tablet. We could walk into a supermarket instead of Mr. Ben's. I could stand at the checkout counter and listen to the cash register, and my heart didn't jump with every ring. Mama could pay some bills back, and I could buy some new secondhand furniture and some clothes, and not have to go to the white folks every day. We had a little money around the house now, but we didn't sign off relief. It was too hard to get back on. I kept my job when school started. The band had a special music class at 8 o'clock in the morning, 1 hour before regular classes started, and I worked out a deal with the bandmaster, Mr. Wilson, to let me take it. That way I could come to school right from the plant and finish up classes and track practice early enough to grab a few hours sleep before leaving for the 7 o'clock shift. 11 o'clock shift in return. I cleaned up the band room every morning, set the music out on the stands for the musicians, and kept out of their way. I like sitting on the side and watching the band play. Everybody working together to make a good sound. The bandmaster, a real sophisticated conductor with his baton, telling everybody when to come in, when to stop. I started watching the drummer. He seemed to be having the most fun, sitting there so cool, beating at that big kettle drum. When he brought those sticks down, everybody heard him. He played all by himself, but he kept the whole thing going. I started tapping my hands on my knees along with him, and sometimes I'd get there a little earlier and take some licks on the drum myself. And after a while, when I was home, I'd keep time to the radio, beating a fork on one of my mama's pots. After school, I'd be out on the truck, inside the fence with my own uniform. There was a new coach, Warren St. James, and he started spending a lot of time with me, teaching me how to start, how to pace myself, when to make that closing kick. I learned fast because I was hungry to learn. And when the season opened, I was running in dual meets in the mile and a half a mile. I was doing well, finishing third and second. And once in a while, I'd win a little race, but I was always tired, sometimes too tired to sleep before I went to work at the plant. Mama came into the bedroom one evening about 8 o'clock. I was sitting up in bed thinking about last week's race and the mistakes I made, how I just didn't have it at the end, how I could get those knees up high enough for the stretch sprint. Can't you sleep, Richard? No, Mama. I don't know why you don't quit that old sport, Richard. She sat down on the bed. She always sighed when she sat down. I worry about you, Richard. You got so much trouble with your stomach and your mind drifts so. Mama, Yes, honey. Remember when you took me to that old woman? I was a real little kid, and she said I'd be a great man someday. Mama took my head in her lap and rocked back and forth. She saw a star right in the center of your head, and I knew it. Oh, how I knew it. You're going to be a great man, Richard. Mama, I'm going to be a great runner. The coach said I could be a great runner, Mama. Mama? Yes, honey. I want to quit my job. And my mama rocked me in her arms, and I guess she thought about the green tablet with the picture of the snuff can on it and getting up at 6 o'clock to put sacks on her shoes, and she said, "Okay, honey, and don't you worry, my special little man. We're gonna be all right." That was my last night at work. The next morning, I got to the band room, and the bandmaster was staring out the window, looking mad. There was a concert the next week, and the drummer was in the hospital. You read music, Gregory? No, sir. Well, I know you've been fooling around with the drums. Now I want to try something. Whenever I tip my head towards you like this, see? I want you to hit the drum like this, here. And the drummer never got his job back. We got through the concert and the one after that. And then it was football season and I was banging the big bass drum in the marching band. Life really began to open up for me. Everybody in school knew me now, the athletic crowd and the musical crowd, and the girls that hung around both. I didn't go out very much. I didn't have money, and I was pretty shy. I could make a quick talk outside the corner drugstore or at a party, but when it came to that big step of asking a girl to have a date with me, I just couldn't get those words out. But I was all right, man. The band was taking big trips to West Virginia and Illinois and Kansas, and we were playing Beethoven and Bach and Mozart, cats I never heard of. Once, just once, I invited Mama to a concert. I sat on the stage of the school auditorium and I got sick and ashamed when I saw her come in wearing that shabby old coat, her swollen ankles running over the edges of those dyed shoes, that dress the rich white folks gave her, a little too much lipstick, the cheap perfume. They asked her to go sit up in the balcony. I should have got up and thrown that kettle drum right into the faces of all those doctors and society people and light complected snobs sitting in the orchestra, but I didn't. I just was glad she was up in the balcony where she couldn't be seen by too many people. I never wanted her at track meets. That was all mine, all mine. Flagpole Gregory, they called me. Iron Man Gregory. I could run all day. I had style. I wore argyle socks in the races and a handkerchief wrapped around my head. I had a little trick. When I came down the stretch, I'd look up at the flagpole and make a little salute. Then I'd go into my closing kick and win going away. They thought I was very patriotic. The flag gave me extra strength. Once in a meet against Vashon High, the other big Negro high school in St. Louis, some kids took the flag down, figuring that would beat me. I never even knew it. Most of the meets were on Saturday, and I stay out until 10 or 11 o'clock Friday night talking with Mr. Ben, or walking with Boo, or hanging around with the guys at the candy store in the pool room. They tell me about a fight they were going to have with another gang or some little bitch they were all going to screw. And maybe some of them boys would come by with some wine. I tell them I couldn't make it. I was in training. I didn't tell them I didn't need it. I had something bigger going for me. Then, about 11 o'clock, when I was sure I was so tired I'd fall right to sleep, I'd go home. I'd wake up early on Saturday mornings with a smirk on my face. I'd walk around the house, look at the peeling linoleum floor, the dirty dishes in the sink, all the raggedy shoes under the bed. I'd punch Garland on the arm and tickle Roland and maybe pinch the girls. I'd hug Mama. We're all right, Mama. We're all right. And then I'd take that one big step out the house, jump the stoop. I was in another world. I walked to the stadium through the early morning, my uniform bag swinging in my hand, and with each step, my stomach would turn over and the little hairs on my would start standing up on the back of my neck. When I got to the stadium, I just waved at the guard and he opened the gate for me. I didn't even have to show him my competitor's pass. Good luck, Greg, as if you need it. He'd wink at me and I'd wink back. and then the sun would be coming up high, and it would still be cold under my sweater. I could feel the sweat under my armpits and between my shoulder blades and behind my knees. Hey, Greg. Hey, Greg. And I'd never look around, just climb quietly up the grandstand and sit on the wooden bench like any other spectator. They'd be running off the shot put and high jump early, and I'd sit up there and watch, just another spectator at the track and field. The loudspeaker would crackle and snap. Will all entrants in the 1 mile please report to the officials table? I stand up real slow and feel this thing start to take over me. This monster that started at my toes, like hot water flowing upward through a cold body. By the time I got down to the steps, I'd be on fire. I dressed fast in the locker room under the stands, put on my bright argyles, wrapped a handkerchief around my head, then I'd walk out on the field, and I knew I could crush the world. There you are, Gregory. I've been looking all over for you. Where you been? I'm ready, coach. St. James looked me over. You better be. I want to talk to you. That big boy from Vashon, he's good. You have to watch it. Don't tell me about him, coach. You go on over and tell him about me. I got to the line and the other runners, and now, for just a moment, I was scared. God, I'm bringing 118 pounds of bones to this line. Been training right, going to bed every night, trying to keep the rules. Now, bang, let the pack get ahead of you for the first quarter. No need to get banged around and elbowed up there with the pace setters, burning themselves out. Take it easy, Greg, baby. That's the way. That's the way. And the half, they started falling back. The guys who don't know how to run, the guys who smoke, the guys who don't really have it, take them now at the 3 quarter. Take one at the curve, get the other one coming off, and come around the straightaway and clean them all up. One by one. Don't play with them, Greg, baby. Don't play with them. Just pass them by like snatching off weeds on the run like you used to do with Boo. Now you feel that thing, the monster, and you're going. Man, you're going. Ripping and running. And here comes that bad dog. There's only two up front now, and they're way over their heads. And here comes that flagpole. Don't forget to look up and salute, Greg. That's your trademark. Somewhere, Coach St. James is saying, God damn, look at that, Gregory. Look at that machine. And my knees are coming up higher and higher, and I'm running faster and faster. And I pass those two like the Greyhound bus passes telephone poles, and the tape snaps against my chest. And then slowly, I'm off on the stride. Slowly, my head goes down, and slowly, the thing inside of me lets go. The monster slips out, and I'm left all alone there. Richard, Gregory, not Dick, not Flagpole or Iron Man, just Richard. I fall on my knees and then on my face, and the grass smells sweet, and my stomach explodes. That, that, my last race, coach. No more. Come on, Gregory, on your feet. They're getting ready for the relays. And I'm up again and waiting. And it starts all over. The hot water seeping up, the monster slipping back in. I can see our number 3 man hit the curve and slow down like I told him to. And now I'm running, and the stick hits my hand like an electric charge. I put my head down and I go, and the charge stays with me because everyone else is ahead and they have to settle down and run a race. But I have to go out and catch them all. Now my knees are coming up again, higher and higher than the flagpole, and I salute my knees, and then I snap the tape again. This time, when I fall on the grass, I go right to sleep, into a dream world. I'm standing on the back of an open car, riding up Fifth Avenue in New York City, ticker tape falling out of the buildings like Christmas snow, and everybody in the world is cheering me as I go, except Big Press, who's hanging his head. I'm asleep in the middle of a stadium, and I don't even hear them screaming my name. I'd wake up screaming sometimes to myself, my legs cramped and twisted under me. Mama would come and sit down and take my legs and rub them gently. Anything makes a man like this here. He got to be crazy to go out and do it. she would say. What is it, Richard, inside of you that makes you go out there? I'm really afraid for you, Richard. Chapter 5. It was a thrill just to go to school, to walk down the street with guys and girls following me, jostling each other to walk next to me to say, "Hey, Greg, how you feeling, baby? Going to win the big one Saturday?" I just lay back and smile and wave my hand. Maybe say something funny about myself. That's all I had to do. Act nice. Never put anyone down. They loved it. I was a celebrity. I walked into Mr. Ben's and he'd stop whatever he was doing and ask me some questions to make sure everyone in the place knew we were friends. If I said I was going out on Sunday to look over the track, there would be a crowd of little kids out there waiting for me. The same cop who used to come over and ask me what I was doing on the corner now came over and asked me how I was doing. The only one who ever seemed to be to impress Mama. She had 5 other kids in the house, and she wasn't going to let me get too big. I'd come running home telling her the coach said I needed a special kind of food for my training. She told me I better stop by the coach's house to get it. You don't understand, Mama. I'm putting the Gregory name on the map. Honey, I put you in the world, and the world was made before maps. Only once I did, only once did I ever invite Mama to one of my track meets. She refused. She knew I really didn't want her there with her shabby coat and swollen legs, sitting with the doctor's sons and the Helen Tuckers who cheered and screamed for Flagpole Gregory, the gladiator. I could almost hear them think, after you kill that lion and stomp that elephant, I'll bring you home, you running fool, and you can tell us what the victory was all about while we sip tea, but don't come too close. I took one of those girls to my first prom. That was a big event in my neighborhood, getting me ready for that junior prom. I couldn't rent a tux because you had to leave a suit as a deposit, and I didn't have a suit. But somehow, Mama came up with the tuxedo pants and the white jacket. The white folks she worked for sent over a flower for the girl. I didn't know you were supposed to bring a flower. Mama took half the day off just to dress me, hollering, hold still, while she put the collar stays in. I was like a king with his court. My brothers and sisters standing around, watching me get dressed, crawling after studs that fell on the floor, opening the door for neighbors who wanted to see me. Man, I looked good in that tux. Didn't have to worry about the pants too long. The shoes not right. The tie doesn't match. Formal. It's there. You know you're perfect. For an hour, Mama sent me around the Mrs. Rectors and Mrs. Simmons and Aunt Elaine's all over the neighborhood so folks could get a look at me. Mr. Ben closed his door and pulled the shade and told me all about his first prom. Never knew he went to prom. He gave me $2. Then Mama gave me $5 and told me to stop by the Chinese place on my way home and bring back dinner for the family. We were never going to splurge and have a party after I got we were going to splurge and have a party after I got back. I didn't have fun at that dance. I was so afraid the taxi wouldn't stop for me that he almost didn't. The girl's mother and father looked at each other and started whispering when I went to pick her up. When we got to the prom, she kept going to the bathroom with her girls, talking in a low voice with the doctor's son. She didn't want to dance to the blues, the gut bucket, the funky songs. Her crowd just came out on the floor for the sweet ballads. They talked about vacations and cars and clothes. After a while, I went down to the far end of the gym and talked to the guys on the track team. Told them all about the woman I screwed, the whiskey I could drink, the cats I had cut. Told them about this affair I had last week where the bitch screamed she would kill herself if I ever stopped giving it to her. Her husband almost caught us, but I climbed out a back window with her drawers in my hip pocket. I told the guys all the stories I had overheard in the taverns. When the dance was finally over, a chilly fright came over the whole place. Suddenly, everyone who wouldn't talk to me or dance with me wanted to leave with me. When we walked out the door, I found out why. There were hundreds of them out there. All the cats who couldn't make it, the guys who couldn't get dates, who whose processed hair was too long, whose pants rolled down too far on their hip. The line ran for blocks, mean looking guys just waiting. We went down the steps, and one of them knocked the doctor's son's hat off. When he reached down to pick it up, he got kicked right in the face. Then the fight started. I took my little group back inside. From the window, I could see a mess of pink and blue formal gowns, rust colored peg suits, black and white tuxes, and the greasy jackets boiling around each other like a pot of beans and fatback. Society was paying its dues. Girls were rolling around on the ground with their gowns up over their heads, and a guy was running down the street with his tail split up to his neck. That was pretty funny. The hoodlums were having their ball now. Downtown hoodlums pounding guys as they came out the door, and neighborhood hoodlums getting second licks, and the cats who just didn't have it standing around the girls cheering and ripping the dress ripping the dress of a girl now and then. One girl stood there just in her underwear, her yellow gown down to her feet, while her date, who had lost a shoe, was hopping away down the street. The cops were there, but they were pretty busy keeping from losing their hats. The only guys really fighting in the hoods were the cab drivers, who were angry at losing all their customers. While I watched, the boys on the football team, who had played against those hoods, been down in the nitty gritty dirt with them, stepped out with their dates. They marched right through the line and nobody bothered them. So I took my little crowd out. The biggest downtown hoodlum looked up from beating some guy's head. Richard Gregory. Hey, there's Flagpole Gregory. Come on, baby, you're all right. That big cat looked me in the eye, then looked at the crowd behind me. You and your lady can go through, baby. But that's all. The other cat stopped for a minute and looked up at me while the chief was talking, while he was really saying, "Man, you're the same as we are, and we're proud of you. But don't try to get anybody through because you should be out here fighting them with us." The rest of my crowd broke and ran, and my date and I walked like a king and a queen past the gang boys and the petty cats, through the bricks and the noises and past the hood who stuck his head out of the backseat of a police car and waved his handcuffs and yelled, "I'll get you next year, you," to all the tuxedos he hadn't ruined this year. We took a cab with some other people from the dance to the Deluxe, one of the best Negro restaurants in St. Louis. I heard about the place. A plate of shrimps cost $2 and something there. I had mama's $5 left in my pocket after the cab rides. The crowd my girl knew were all sitting at one table, and they pulled out chairs for us kind of slow. The doctor's son, who had been kicked in the face, looked me over. "You look pretty clean, man. Got punched a couple of times, but I was lucky," I said. But he knew. Then it started from the far end of the table. "There's a bug at this table. Don't you see the bug?" I looked for the bug. "Is it a big bug?" said somebody at the other end. "You know it," said the far end. "How you know it's a bug?" "Smells like a bug." After a while, when I realized they were talking about me, I picked up the menu and held it in front of me. It was like opening a box and seeing the most horrible face in the world staring back at you. The cheapest thing on the menu was chicken, $1.25. "I have the shrimps," she said. I didn't even know what they looked like. I got scared and I thought about the $5 in my pocket. Some of it was supposed to buy dinner for the kids. No choice. I had to spend. I ordered the chicken. I ate the chicken and the pie a la mode, and I drank the Pepsi Cola, but I never tasted them. They wouldn't let a bug in this place. If it had a tie on, they would. Bug crawled right through the fight. Didn't get squashed. No, bugs never step on bugs. I needed the final say that night. When the waitress came over with the bill for the table, I looked up at her and said, "I'll take it." The table got very quiet. "I want to tell you, you did a real nice job here on service. I worked in white hotels and this is the best restaurant I've ever been in. The waitress puckered up her lips and put her hands on her hips. Son of a bitch. Will you just give me the $12.50 so I can get the hell out of here? I played my game. Damn it, bitch, you cursed me. You cursed me in front of my friends here, in front of the ladies, and then I started to curse. My whole childhood spilling out of my mouth. Everything vile I ever heard on the street or in a tavern from the big press. The waitress' mouth dropped open, and the kids started to get up from the table. My date started to cry. She wanted to go home. I gave her $1 to go home in a cab. The waitress was shaking. Just give me my money, you dirty little motherfucker. I whispered to her, I ain't got no money. She shouted, you ain't got no money. Everybody heard her as they walked out of the restaurant. I'm sorry. I said all those things to stall for time. Here's $4, your money for the service. I'll come back tomorrow. If I don't have the money then, I'll wash the dishes for it tomorrow. She looked at me, and somewhere down the line, I guess she could see what it was all about. Okay, I believe. When I walked out on the street, my date was still there, crying. I took her home. When we got to her front door, she turned around and leaned up against me. Thanks, she said. I had a lovely time. She wanted to kiss me goodnight. I couldn't believe it. She was the first girl I ever kissed. I got back home that night. About 4 a.m., the folks were sitting on the front porch waiting on me. And I lay back and smiled and then at them and waved my hand and sat down and told them all about the dance, the way it should have been. I made them cry. The tears rolled down their faces when I told them how the girls in pink and yellow floated like clouds, the music sweet as a chorus of angels. The guys were so strong in their black and white tuxes. I told them about the snowy white tablecloths at the deluxe and how the shrimps were as big as my fist. None of us knew that the batter wasn't a part of the shrimp. The waitress smiled and bowed. The cab drivers lined up to pick us up. We laughed and sang and strutted down the avenue like kings and queens, like high society. Me and the doctor's sons got along so well, he invited me over to his house next week. I showed them the lipstick on my handkerchief and told them how my date loved me, how elegant and fine she thought I was. They sat on the front porch and cried for what they had missed, and I cried because I knew they hadn't missed anything at all. Then I went inside to face Mama. Garland cried all night, she said. He didn't have anything to eat. I sat down next to her at the kitchen table and told her I spent all the money. She cried. Did you have fun, Richard? I had fun here before I left. Mama, all the folks coming by to see me had fun out on the porch telling Boo and everybody about the dance, about the dance I'm going to one day. She put her arm around me. It's my fault, Richard. I know kids don't go to that kind of dance without having $20 in their pockets. I should have borrowed more. No, Mama, $20 would have been enough. Wouldn't have been enough for me tonight. I still would have messed up. I would have had to pick up all the checks in that whole restaurant, Mama. I would have had to pay for everybody. There were other proms after that, and I learned what to do to have fun, to take girls who wanted to be with me, who wanted to dance to funky songs. I learned to slip out of the dance 2 hours early and buy some wine for the meanest cat standing outside. He'd get drunk, then a dog, then and dog somebody else a little more. But he let my crowd through. And I learned to introduce my girl to the hoodlum chief. That's all he wanted. When we left the dance, he'd make all those cats stop fighting for a few minutes. Now that me and my girl were acquainted, he didn't want her to see him acting so badly. And by my third prom, I figured out how to stop the beatings altogether. I opened the windows so the cats outside could peep right in. I brought special guys and girls by the windows and introduced them to the hoods. After a while, those cats would whisper to one of my friends, hey, dance with that girl over there for me. And before you knew it, they were passing their bottles through the window and saying, have a drink on me, man. The guys on the outside were in on the party too, and they acted nice because they didn't want those windows pulled to shut them out. Yo, all right. That was chapter. What? That was chapters 3 through 5. Yeah, I don't want these to be too long. Let them be like an hour. But yeah, that was 3 through 5. Dick Gregory's Nigger. It's an autobiography. It's a cool story. But yeah, man. Rest in peace to Dick Gregory. We will continue this. I'll probably continue more of it later today. But when it comes to books and literature, you gotta let shit marinate. But yeah, man.